Hey guys, welcome back to the Soul Sisters podcast. We are so excited that you are joining us again. We love to talk about keeping, making, and restoring friendships on our show. So thank you guys for joining again. Thank you for all the subscribers and followers and everything that you guys are doing, interacting with everything we're putting out there. And we want this to be something for you guys. Like, we are here to bring the good news of friendship to you. I like that phrasing. I don't know if
That'll
it's
play
cheesy.
out in a minute. You'll see.
But we're here. I'm Daniela.
And I'm Alex.
And we are so happy to have all of you here. Today, we have an awesome guest with us. We have Hillary Roseti. She is the resident marriage and family therapist. And we're going to talk about therapy today. We're going to get deep. We're going to sit on the couch. We're going to talk about it all.
Yeah, so strap in, get comfy. We're in for the ride, the therapy ride.
The ride of our lives. Well, thank you, Hillary. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me, both of you. I'm so excited to be here today. Yeah.
I love it. So, like I kind of mentioned before, I am such an advocate of therapy. Like, it was probably like 2 years ago, I was struggling a lot in my marriage, and my friend Julie, she was like, I have been going to a therapist, just a personal one. It wasn't marriage for her, but just a personal one. And she's like, it has been life-changing for me. She had, she was dealing with certain things in life that were just become really hard. We all struggle with things, and things just get really hard. And she told me about it. I found a therapist, and it's been so great for us. So I am always like, therapy, do it.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And obviously, I am a therapist, so I'm such a proponent of it. But thanks for sharing that little bit. It's just... Yeah, I do. I think everyone needs it in some way, shape, or form, and I know we'll get to that later, but I'm just excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like a lot of people, I feel like there's a lot of schools of thought. I feel like if an old school way of thinking, like even my parents' generation, I think it's still very taboo for them to even consider going to a therapist or a counselor. There's also like the religious point of view. Like, if you grow up like we did in a Christian home, then there's that whole aspect of like, well, we'll
just pray.
give it to God or whatever,
pray about it,
which is a great part too. But I feel like just like with medicine, like you kind of have to two-hand it. Like, I think medicine was created so that we can take advantage of that and use it for our benefit versus, it can't just be like one or the other. So I totally think therapy is like that. It's like, we got to take care of it spiritually, but also let's take care of it mentally and psychologically with something like therapy. So I'm so for it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's definitely changing generationally, but for our parents and grandparents' generation, it was, I think, a lot about failure. If you had to go to therapy, I mean, maybe it was for something very severe like PTSD, or it was a huge deal. It wasn't as accessible, and it kind of meant failure, I think, for their generation. But that's really changing. I think with our generation and down, people are going to therapy a lot more. It's a lot more just normal. So there's not as much of a stigma around it. And I think that's really helpful. So people can get the help that they need if they want it.
I love it. For like all the podcasts that I listen to, there's always a BetterHelp ad in the podcast. Always. I'm like, oh, okay. I like the in-person better, but I'm like, it's cool that it is becoming normalized to be like, let's get some help for this. Let's talk about this, because I think that's another problem that a lot of people have is we don't know how to express ourselves. We don't know how to communicate. I know for me, expressing my feelings, like I can talk, but if you're like, tell me how you feel, like what's going on in that little heart, I'm like,
there's like an emotional constipation.
Emotional constipation.
Yeah, it's very hard. I'm of the same way. I just even when you can kind of see it on my face, oh, how are you doing? I'm always gonna say I'm fine. I can literally be dying inside, and I'm fine. And it's just the one thing, I don't want to be a burden to you. I know that you have your issues. And so, I mean, having a therapist where you can kind of to me, it's also like the disassociatedness of it. Like I have this person who doesn't really know me personally, but has the know-how to deal with how I'm feeling. It sounds like a good deal. So
I love that. Yeah, it's like a safe place, right?
yeah.
I mean, we don't want to burden friends or family and put all of our stuff on them, of course. But yeah, it's someone that's trained to just sit there and listen to you. And it feels like a really safe place to practice talking about feelings or talk about whatever. Yeah.
How have you in your career as a therapist, how did that even come about? What made you desire this career?
Yeah, so I've been a therapist for about 5 years, and I was thinking about it. I think back in my early 20s, right out of college, I was just trying to figure everything out. Like, what job do I want to do? I was dating. I was, out of college and launching from my own family of origin and just trying to figure out what things do I want to take, what things do I want to do differently, and how can I make relationships work in young adulthood, and what direction do I want to go in. You're dealing with breakups and you're trying to securely attach to someone you're dating, maybe for the first time. And so there's just so much that's going on in your 20s. And yeah, I mean, I had an anxiety attack, and that was really my body letting me know, okay, this is enough, and we need to get some help. We need to start like moving through, I call it metabolizing some of this emotion, because it does really tend to get stuck in us.
That's a great point. So would you say like if someone is having panic attacks or anxiety attacks, is that pretty much a clear indicator like let's get some help, probably, obviously from a doctor, maybe even medication is required, but is that a
Yeah.
pretty clear like signal to maybe start therapy?
I would say so. I always talk with my clients about just listening to your body and noticing your body, right? So whether it's depression or anxiety, like these are just symptoms, and it's actually showing us that our bodies are working the way they're supposed to. It's like a little red flag, right? The body is saying, "Hey, help! Like this is too much, or something that you're doing is not working." And I think it's a great time to take that seriously and check in. And yeah, go get professional help from a doctor, from a therapist, and just say what's going on here.
That's such a good point, that means your body's actually working well. It's not like
Yeah, I think
it's like
it's
crying out
cool.
for help. That's
It's
so
Yes.
interesting.
cool that you mentioned that depression and anxiety are symptoms of
Yeah.
an underlying issue, because sometimes we just, okay, I have depression and that's it.
Right.
That's where it stops.
Yeah.
But to understand that there's a reason behind the depression, a reason behind the anxiety, and sometimes you can't even get to it, and that's where the therapist comes in. So that's really, I never thought of it that way. So
Yeah.
that's really, I learned something new today. Because yeah, I've always thought it's just depression, depressed,
Yeah.
whatever, deal with the depression versus
Yeah.
the underlying
The root cause,
yeah,
the root
Yeah.
situation.
right.
And there's been such a like huge increase, right, in anxiety and depression over the years,
Oh
right?
my
It
God.
feels like it is.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we are we're in an epidemic of loneliness right now. We know that research just came out pretty recently, but especially with the pandemic and all of this isolation, and then probably people just yeah, going to therapy, being willing to label and maybe talk about these things too. Yeah, it's everywhere. Absolutely.
I think it's so interesting you said the loneliness part, because that's kind of
Yeah.
what like our whole show is about, is like
Mm-hmm.
reconnecting with
Mm.
friends or
Wow.
reestablishing those friendships that you have. Because I even just took a screenshot the other day, like on my like Apple News notification. It's like people are the loneliest they've ever been in history or something, and like friendship,
Yeah.
it was an article all about loneliness and friendship, and I literally took a screenshot to post it somewhere on our social media, because it's crazy that when life gets hard, we isolate versus like reaching out, and
Yeah.
if you don't already have those established, like Alex is my bestie, she's my ride or die, she's going to be my best friend till we die.
I
So,
love it.
like, if you don't have that established, though, it's hard
Yeah.
to be like, I need help, or like, can you help? Can we talk about this? Or this is, I'm really struggling with this. So, I think that having those friendships are so important. And that's like our whole message is like, they're there to help you, stand
Yeah.
alongside you, and support you.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of us need more help than that, but just along the same lines of loneliness, I
Yeah.
feel like if we don't have those friendships, it's unhealthy. We literally like read a
Yes.
statistic that it was like people that
Yeah.
don't have like friendships in their lives, like true friendships in their lives, it's
They
like an
don't live as
equivalent.
long.
Yeah, they don't live as long. They literally live 10 years less. There's like a way less
Yes.
life expectancy. It's like smoking cigarettes or something. It said like there was like
Like a
a
correlation. Yeah.
correlation. It's
Yeah.
literally bad for your body.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so cool that our research is showing us this now, and it's something that communities have known like across time, right? But we can confirm that, and it does. It impacts your heart rate, it impacts your health, it impacts the way your body functions, and yes, life expectancy can totally go down. It's really crazy, but
It is.
relationships are so important. And yeah, I love what you're saying. A therapist can't be your only source of that, right? You maybe go to a session for 50 minutes once a week or every other week, depending on how expensive it is. And yeah, the goal is not to rely, fully on the therapist. You want to take what you're learning in that space. It's like a microcosm of your life, and you want to apply it to other friendships
Mhm.
and spaces outside to start to really integrate those things into the rest of your life.
And I know you had mentioned that you do a lot of, I don't know if it's called attachment theory, or what is it that you focus on with attachment?
Yes. Yeah, all of my work is kind of attachment based work. And so it works around what we can really now call attachment science. It has been a theory, but we know now with research that it is a science. We, as human beings, were made to be in connection with other people. We get comfort from secure, attached relationships, and we were not made to be living in isolation. And so I help clients, find secure attachment first with themselves, and then maybe with a significant other, a partner, a parent and a child, whatever it looks like. But I think one of the coolest things for me about attachment science and becoming securely attached to somebody is it's not about perfection. It's not about getting it right. To be securely attached to someone, it assumes that there will be what we call ruptures in the relationship. And it's all about, okay, cool. Can we repair that together? Can we talk about that miss, or can we talk about, that thing that you said or you did? And can we really understand and then move forward?
That is so
Um,
awesome. Well, I don't know where I read this, but that supposedly, like, as humans, we're wired to be attached to our mother, or I think it's mostly the mother, obviously, because she's the one that feeds us and she's the one that nurtures us as we're growing up, as we're babies growing up, and we're always seeking that motherly love from our spouse, no matter if
yes.
we're a man or a woman, but we're always
Yeah.
seeking those tendencies of like, like, whatever it is, an unconditional love that the mother gives, like, we're always
Yeah.
seeking that in our spouse. And who can compare,
Hmm.
to a mother's love? Like, obviously we love our spouses unconditionally, but it's a different kind of love. But I just thought that was so interesting, how we yearn for that as adults. Like, we're like, I want to see that in my spouse. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's where conflicts come in, is where like, you're not loving me, but ultimately it's like, I want to be loved like my mom loved me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, and those attachment relationships, I mean, we learn how to do that. We say we get the map of attachment from our primary caregivers, right?
Hmm.
So from a mom or a dad or a grandparent, whoever it is, that's how we learn to see ourselves and to see other people.
Mm.
And yeah, that absolutely gets transferred onto a spouse when, if we get married. And yeah, you can see how it can get kind of crazy. So,
Oh my gosh. Human beings are complicated.
Very,
We come
yeah.
very.
in with all this baggage. We come in with all these expectations. I know, speaking from my own self, like, that was one of my biggest hangups, is I came into marriage thinking like a 1950s like sitcom. Like, I was like, I had this ideal image, and even though I knew that wasn't right, like real, there was
Yeah.
still this like other fantasy part of me that was like, but maybe it could be real,
Yeah.
like maybe I could, live in this like perfect marriage situation when, obviously that's not realistic. That's not life.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
Yeah,
how
not
about you, Alex?
no.
Tell us all the things that
Well,
you did wrong in your
you
marriage.
see,
Kidding.
no, no. You know what it was? I didn't even have a guide. I didn't really have a proper guide because you
Hmm.
had not that my parents weren't loving parents, but I can tell your parents really love each other whenever
Hmm.
they interact, even
Mm,
when they're kind of like taking jabs at each other. It's funny. It's cute. Like with me, it was a lot of turmoil, and so I didn't know what constituted a good marital relationship, because they would hit moments of turmoil, and then there was no apology. It was just separate, and then
Sweep it under the rug.
yeah, and then my dad would say something funny, and then my mom's like, okay, whatever, that's the extent of what I'm gonna
mhm.
get. So I never had any kind of,
Conflict
and
resolution.
definitely no conflict resolution. I didn't know how to be treated, because the
Mm,
older I got as a female, my dad didn't know how to deal with that. He always saw me as his little girl.
mm.
So I didn't have that kind of roadmap into how someone else, my partner, was supposed to be treating me, which led me down the law, a really interesting path. I'm going to put it that way. And then that just closed me off,
Hmm.
because I feel like if I let you know how I'm feeling, then you're just going to get upset, and why are you feeling that way? You're
Defensiveness.
overreacting, and so I would always keep it closed off. So it ended up us kind of, okay, we would argue, and there would be no conflict resolution because neither of us knew how to do it. So,
Yeah.
you, like you said, the way the primary caregiver, how
Yeah.
they show us affection and love, can either lead
Yeah.
to great function or great dysfunction.
Totally.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, and I heard you saying, Alex, there would be these ruptures either between my parents or with myself and my dad, and I'm hearing you say there wasn't really a way to truly repair that, to truly move forward. Maybe it would be like a joke your dad made, and things would just go back to
Hmm.
normal. But the emotion never got to make its way to the surface, right?
No.
Or your dad really understanding what, I don't know, the impact or your emotion or what was happening inside of you might have gotten missed.
Right. Yeah, no, that was never on his radar.
Yeah.
He was kind of more on the narcissistic side. Well, I'm getting super honest here, guys. But
I
yeah,
love
it was kind of his way or the highway, and you know,
Yeah.
it, we never we never really, I don't know, it's my family will always be there for each other, will always care for each other. But as
Yep.
far as having deep connections with each other,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen. Or maybe it can. But part of it would be them having to seek out
Hmm.
therapy with me,
Hmm.
because I know that I could definitely use it.
Yeah.
Because I still have a lot of stunted emotions and things that I haven't gotten out. But
Yeah.
I know that part of it would be them coming with me, and they're of the generation
Mm.
where we're out here to put our best foot forward, and no one can know, and so
Yeah.
Do you think that's why there is like that attachment, um because of the attachment science that we know now, that there is that it explains those like daddy issues or mommy issues that it seems like pretty much everybody has? Would you kind of connect the two? Are they the same thing in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can draw a pretty clear line, Alex, just from the way that you might have learned to think about yourself, right? Your emotions, are they important? Or is I don't know, how we function in our family, like it's dad's way or the highway? Like these things that we learn growing up, how can they not be translated into friendships, into dating and romantic relationships? Because, yeah, so many of these things get I'm not going to say solidified, but they become imprinted on us that this is how it works. This is the map. And, the great thing about neuroscience too is that our brain can change, right? It's neuroplasticity is an amazing thing. And so that's why therapy can work if we're willing to look in ourselves and do something different.
That's a great point. I love that you explained the actual science behind that, because sometimes we're like, oh, it's just talking. What's talking going to do?
Right.
That old school way of thinking. What's talking going to do? I'm just going to tell somebody my problems, and how is that going to change? But I love that you said that once we have a new perspective, a new way of looking at things, a new way of just like blah, getting it out, that our brain can actually rewire, and hopefully we can do things differently, or have a lot. For me, the biggest thing I got out of therapy was awareness. It's
Yeah.
understanding how I function, and maybe not just play the blame game all the time, like you're messing up everything. It was me finding out, oh, I guess I do that, and why do I do that, and why are these, why is that my instinct, or what's triggering me in this situation. So to me, that was the biggest takeaway, was I was realizing I was gaining so much self-awareness of my tendencies and habits.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, good therapy is going to do that, right? It's going to ask you to do the U-turn, to look at yourself, and to say, yeah, hey, what are my protective moves here? What are the places I go to? And what's driving that? But ultimately, like, what can I do differently? Because I can't change anyone except for myself.
That's so true. I
Very,
love that. I
yeah.
love it. And that's honestly why I think everyone needs it, is maybe you're not
Yeah.
having marital issues, or maybe you're not having parent issues, but you're always going to be interacting with people, and you're always going to be, in community. You have a job, you have, whatever. You need to, I think it's so important for us to have that self-awareness of, I need to work
Yeah.
on this, or what's
Mm-hmm.
that underlying anger that I'm having, or you know what I mean? Just anything like
Yes.
that. Just working on ourselves, because I feel like we always like to push it
Mhm.
down. Don't
Yeah.
talk about it. I don't want to look at it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Re-
absolutely.
Relationships can be a nice mirror into, because where you think you're doing okay, or you're saying, I didn't say anything, someone else, the way someone else interprets what you say is totally different than how you think you said it,
Yeah.
which is half of my fights with my husband, but whatever. Um, but yeah, people, they're kind of like a nice mirror. And when you have like the type of friendship, you can be like, no,
Hmm.
go back and rethink what you just said in that
Hmm.
sentence. And the good part is having that neuroplasticity to be able to kind of, you know what, yeah, let me kind of rethink how I react or how I say things is super important. And it's nice to know that you could see someone to help you. I'm glad you went into, that's how you know it's a good therapist or good therapy, because they're kind of letting you know and being able to tell you, hey, this is where you're lacking, because like you said, you can't change anyone else but yourself
And
ultimately.
I actually went into therapy like, I need to change my husband. Like, he is ruining everything. But
Yeah.
honestly, I came out of it being like, no, I need to think about what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing? Obviously, it takes two to tango. It takes,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, there's very few situations where maybe it's an abusive relationship or something
Right.
where it is kind of all on one person. But in most situations, I would say, right, Hillary, it's kind of like it takes two to make this thing work. So we need to figure out both
Yep.
parties. What are both people bringing to the melting
Yes.
pot of
Yeah.
marriage?
Yeah, absolutely. And, um, yes, when there's an abusive situation, it's never the fault, and the responsibility doesn't lie on the person who's being abused. Absolutely. And I think it can still be helpful to bring some curiosity forward for that person and just wonder, oh my gosh, what is it about, me or my background or even how I view myself, my worth, that has, allowed me to stay, for a certain amount of time. And again, there's not responsibility there. It's not that person's fault, and we can still be really curious about any parts of me that I've actually just been used to being, treated this way, as an example.
Right.
Have you ever led? I've heard a lot about friendship therapy. Supposedly that's like a new thing, friendship therapy. Have you ever led any friendship therapy before?
I haven't, but I think it would be really fun.
Right?
Yeah.
It seems cool.
We'll
I
have to
mean,
do a session. We'll do a session, we'll record it
we'll book you
and
traditionally.
So
Oh my
great.
gosh, record it? I'm scared to record
record
it.
it. Then we end up in tears
We're like,
crying.
forget it. We cancel the Soul Sisters podcast. Forget it.
We can't make this work.
We can't make this work. No, I think, I mean, I love that because that also means that people are taking time for their friendships. You know, they see the value in the other person, that they're like, no, we're going to work it out. Like, I love you so much that we're going to work this out. We're not going to
Yeah.
just dismiss each other and forget about each other. So I love the fact that there is friendship therapy. And I think that's so cute. I'm like, that's awesome.
I love it. I'm like, why have we not done this before? I think it's such a great idea. We do therapy with other dyads, spouses, partners, parent, child, and why would you not do it with friends? I think it could be a really, really helpful tool.
Yes, I love that. I think that's super helpful.
I wanted to ask you, what is like the one thing that you see most couples like have
Mhm.
tension about? Like, what is that
Yeah.
one thing that
Yep.
just,
Such a good question. Um, so for almost every single couple, you can usually find, and this is based on attachment styles, but one person in the relationship tends to be what we would call the pursuer, or they tend to like dial up the heat, dial up the emotion, move towards the other person to get their needs met, to help the relationship. And then, of course, on the other side of that, there tends to be a withdrawer.
okay. Yeah. I see that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's so common. And so, I love being able to tell couples like there's nothing wrong with you. This is really across the board. And so it's getting underneath those particular stances and trying to understand and bring that insight and awareness to what's going on and why.
And you're saying it does relate to the attachment style of like usually, let's say you have like more of a neglectful that withdrawal, or maybe had more of a neglectful parent versus the, or I don't know the background, but it's usually like there was maybe a more loving, nurturing parent versus a neglectful parent or something.
Yeah, I would say someone who tends to play the pursuer role, um, they would probably have a more anxious attachment style.
Mm,
And what that means is I'm just going to move
Yeah.
in, I'm going to move towards you. I want to
mm,
talk about things, I want to
mm,
fix things, I want to make sure that we're good.
totally.
Samesies.
And that withdrawer stance, that's going to be someone probably with a little bit more of an avoidant attachment style. So again, I'm just going to actually, to preserve our relationship, I don't want to get into conflict with you. And so
Mm,
I don't want to bring things up. And I'm going to maybe move away when we start to have conflict because it's scary.
it is scary. It is scary. I have a very
Yeah.
random question. It just popped into my mind.
Yeah.
Um, do you find that women have a higher sex drive than men?
Hmm.
Because this was
Whoa.
something TMI. We'll maybe make this a
That's
PG-13
fine.
episode.
That's fine. I just wasn't ready.
I
I was
have
like,
so many
well,
friends. I only bring this up because I have so many friends in my life that we are
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Why are we always asking? Why you think you see in movies or you feel like in other relationships it's always been the other way around, but I don't know.
Mm.
It feels like the women are always like, "Hello, it's time. Let's go." Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I love it. I think it can go both ways. I
Okay.
really think it can go both ways. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It can go.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I know the stereotypical, I don't know, rhetoric around it is that men have a higher sex drive, but that's definitely not true. And I think it's good and important to make space
Mhm.
for um, this. I always try to talk with my couples about sex because it's really important and it is a way that we bond
Mhm.
and play
Mhm.
and find comfort.
Mhm.
But no, it's so complex, so I think it can totally go both ways.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, my all-time favorite book and resource that I like around the topic of sex for women in particular is called "Come as You Are." I don't know if
Mhm.
you all are familiar with it.
I like the
Um,
play on words.
I know, I think it's so great. But yeah, it's written by an amazing sex educator, and I would recommend that to anybody.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, the more resources, the better. Because
Yeah.
I was just talking to my mom is a first grade teacher, and we were talking about Mr. Rogers. You remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, like
Oh my gosh, the sweater guy.
the
I'm
sweater guy?
I'm tuning in to see how this correlates right now.
I know. Okay, so the
The
whole thing,
transition.
yeah, sorry, it doesn't really it does not connected with sex, but
Okay.
just the idea of he's my fantasy. No, I'm just kidding. No, the whole idea was that we as a community, we don't really talk about like our feelings and expressing our feelings. And Mr. Rogers was all about like expressing
Yeah.
your feelings. Are you scared? Is this making you, talking about all
Mhm.
those things that we like to hide? And he was probably the only kids show that I can think of
Yeah.
where it was all about conflict resolution and all about your feelings and all about like how do we express ourselves and how do we handle this, because all the shows are like cutesy, all the kids shows are like songs and cutesy and silliness and nonsense and whatever. But we were talking about, I was like, dang, we really need a show like that, like, because it educates kids and it also educates parents on how to be like, tell me
Yes.
what you're needing, tell me, because it's so frustrating as an adult. I am one of those people where, like I mentioned before, it's so hard for me to express my feelings, where and all avenues of life. So it's like we need to learn as little kids, how do we share that.
Have you seen Bluey?
bluey's Bluey's pretty good at that. Daniel Tiger's really good at that. I have children, so I know all the kids shows.
I just recently started watching Bluey, and I love it. I love it. But
That's
I know that
amazing.
it goes in depth with processing trauma
Yeah.
and processing conflict resolution
Mhm.
amongst kids and expressing your feelings. So I'm
Mhm.
waiting to get to those episodes, so maybe I can use that
And
kind of in
that's a
between.
kids show? That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that they're taking a break now for newer until they make a new season. But yeah, they go into a lot of these,
Wow.
and they break it down really well to
Mhm.
where it is understandable for a child to
Yeah.
grasp that concept. So like I said, I'm gonna keep watching so that way in between therapy sessions I have Bluey to kind of to kind of coach me
I love
through.
it.
So yeah, but
That's
what I've
amazing.
seen so far, I definitely like Bluey for that. But I don't.
So
I,
watch Mr. Rogers'
and
Neighborhood,
I think
watch Bluey.
Up, or not
Louis.
Up. Um,
A show?
no, it was a movie, a Pixar movie with
There
the
was called
emotions.
Up. Oh,
No,
Inside
no,
Out.
Inside Out.
I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
So,
It's
but
so good.
yeah,
it's such
I
a
talk
deep
about it.
concept.
I know.
it
It's
was a very
amazing.
deep concept
And they
for.
made it so like digestible for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like kids programming is so important. I don't know. I watched this whole documentary about the whole Mr. Rogers thing. I went on this whole tangent with Mr. Rogers and learning all about it because there really
Great.
is nothing else like it. I guess Bluey
Yeah.
does kind of do that and just like, but there also needs to be like grown-up stuff. Like why is there no TV show? Like
Yeah.
why is there no Netflix
She's
series about
pissed.
therapy?
She's pissed.
Why? What, we have all these like stupid, well, stupid. I say stupid after I just told you I love Love is Blind and we were going to talk about it, but we have like 9 million shows like Love is Blind, but we don't have anything about like a therapy session type of setup?
Yeah. I mean, I think as Soul Sisters podcast continues to take off, you guys might, that should be your next
Oh, you see
calling.
that? You see that?
We
And then we'll
need
partner
it.
with you, Hillary, to give
Yes.
us, insight on how to approach certain topics.
Yes.
That's it. I see it. I see it in our
Let's
future.
do
I
it.
see
I
it.
see it.
I see it. We're dreaming big. So, is there one tool, as we're closing out a little bit, is there one tool of communication that you can kind of share with our listeners of this is one tool that you can implement in your life and your relationships that will kind of help you um, just communicate better overall, I guess?
Yes, yes. So one tool that I use with my couples a lot is called, so it's an acronym, TEMP, like taking the temp on a particular situation. So the T stands for trigger. So starting to just bring awareness to what it was, whether it was a facial expression or yeah, body language or something that someone said and really noticing. Then the E stands for emotion, what emotion that brought up in you. And then the M stands for meaning making. Like, how am I
Mm.
understanding this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you rolled your eyes, and I just got so frustrated. I got pissed. And kind of the meaning I made out of this, though, is that you think I'm stupid. You're not interested. You're not here with me, or you see me as being, um, yeah, just unimportant to you in this moment. And then the P is, what's the protective move that I then make? Do I walk away? Do I shut down and leave the room? Maybe I get loud and I yell, or I let you know, I unleash some words and I let you know how angry I am at you. Um, so that little acronym can really help you pause a particular moment and go pretty deep with it and
Mm.
understand all four of those aspects and what might be happening in a split second.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's
no,
really
as,
good.
as she was going through it, I was thinking of specific scenarios. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's an excellent tool to use when you kind of are in those situations where you're kind of bumping heads
Yep.
with spouse and you 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 don't know, because sometimes I'm like, is it me, is it
Yeah.
the way I'm interpreting, and yes, to a degree, but also them as well, to
Hmm.
letting them know, hey, I don't
Mhm.
like that because X, Y, and Z. And
Hmm.
then that way, you can come together and figure that out together, as to maybe
Yeah.
we can come up with another, okay, next time be aware of your eye roll,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because that's gonna really make me upset. So
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Most of the times people just get to see, or they might hear about the trigger and then they see how you protect yourself in that moment. And that might, all of that happens kind of, on the surface, but people might actually not get to understand what was the emotion that came up for me in that moment and how did I understand that?
mm,
Like, what was the meaning I made out of that? Getting to some of that is just really important, and being able to repair a particular moment.
definitely. Yeah.
That's really good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what would be any closing words for someone who's maybe scared to go into therapy? What would be your advice if, let's say, those red flags, our body's giving us those red flags, or having anxiety? What would be a good way to segue into therapy?
Yeah. Well, I think just number one, normalizing that, right? Again, your body's doing what it's supposed to, so there's no shame. There's no like, oh, you failed. And so everyone experiences anxiety at some point. And yeah, just reminding people that it's really normal. And it takes a lot of courage, though, to do something different, right? It takes a lot of courage. It's always, energy efficient for our bodies, and it's easier to just actually keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Hmm.
But typically, when we become uncomfortable enough with where we are, then we are willing to put forth the energy to just try something new.
That's so
Um,
awesome.
so, yeah, I would say go for it. Find a safe person, a therapist that you really connect with, and just give it a try. It can take a couple times, right? It's
Hmm.
really normal to, try two or three therapists and just find someone that you really connect with.
That's a really good point too.
Yeah.
Just because the first person you find, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best fit for you. That's a great point. Just try a
Yeah.
couple till till you find the one that fits.
Yeah, yeah. You want to like them, right? You want to feel comfortable. You want
Hmm.
to notice, do they help me feel safe?
Right.
And does their personality match mine? All of that's really important in a therapeutic relationship.
That's so great. We always love to ask one last question of, has there been a friendship in your life that has been life changing? You couldn't imagine your life of being the same without that person.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. My friend Cecilia and I have been friends since fourth grade.
Oh,
You beat
wow.
us.
Yep.
Fourth grade. What's crazy though is So her mom like led our Sunday school class, and I remember her mom
Oh,
bringing Krispy Kreme donuts to the Sunday school
good
class.
Sunday school class, dang.
I know, we were so little. But then her family moved away, I think in seventh grade. So we really only had, I don't know, 3 years together. And then the rest of our friendship from eighth grade on has been us living in different places.
Wow,
Um,
that's impressive because sometimes long distance can kill friendships.
yeah.
So the fact that you guys were able to overcome that is super impressive.
Yeah, it's taken a lot of flexibility and a lot of adaptability, but yeah, we did, high school and prom and dating and college and then adulthood, all of these different life stages from afar, and we've worked hard to yeah be a part of each other's lives along the way. So
That's really incredible. Yeah, because when I lived in LA for 3 years, I was like, well, first of all, I went to college away and then I went to LA. So we definitely felt it when we were
Hmm.
separate from each other because now we live 5 minutes away from each other. But it was hard. It's hard to stay in communication and up to date with people and like you kind of
yes.
lose touch. So that's really incredible that your best friend has been long distance this whole time.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a really unique situation, but I don't think we knew like when we were in fourth grade how similar we were to one another. But that's worked in our favor, and so we've been able to just find something that works for each of us. So
That's
yeah,
Awesome.
awesome. And your hubby is one of my dear friends. I mean, we were friends mostly in college, but I was
yeah,
telling her, I'm like, do you remember Matt? Remember Matt Rossetti?
I was like, yes, I
He's
do.
the best. Your husband is such an
he
amazing
is.
guy. Like he stands out in so many ways. Like I remember,
Yes,
I'm gonna just share one little Matt story real quick. All right,
yes, please.
when we lived in LA, so we were in our early 20s when we were out there, right? And so we were like, let's go to the club, you know? So we went to this club in Hollywood and Matt, okay, so it was like, I think it was like two or three girls, and Matt was the only guy with us, but he was protective. Like
Yeah.
he would like get between like us and like a
Oh,
guy. Like he'd be like, guys, come over here, girls, over here. And he was like so protective. And I was like, okay, this guy is gold. Like he is such an amazing person. So I was
He
like,
is.
when I met you, I was like, okay, great. He married like an equally amazing person. Cause I was like, if they're just a hair shy of his amazingness, I'm like, I wasn't gonna have it.
she would not have
I love
approved.
it.
So I'm so happy for you guys. I'm so happy you found each other and you've been
Yeah,
in your beautiful marriage.
yeah,
And
couple years.
yeah, that's so awesome. So, anyways, I
Yeah,
just wanted to brag on Matt for a little bit and just remind you of the gem that you have, even though
thank
you
you.
guys maybe had a fight this morning. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no, that's too
She's
real.
like,
yeah,
Actually,
actually.
yeah, he didn't take out the trash. I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh, that's so
he's great.
fun.
So
He is
thanks,
great.
Daniela.
Thank you so much, Hillary, for joining us and sharing.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is so helpful. I hope it's helpful to our audience. Just help like practical things that we can start doing. Like you mentioned the temp thing, and we can kind of check in with ourselves. What is triggering us? What's happening inside versus just all the exterior, which I think is so great. And even just noticing those red flags inside of us to maybe slow down or start looking for the help that we need with conflict in our lives. And so thank you so much. This was wonderful. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you both for having me. It's been really great.
Anytime. And if we want to have, maybe we'll, if you're interested, maybe we can have
Doing
a
the
part
friendship,
two.
yeah.
That would be great. I would love it. I would
We'll
so
go
love
through a
it.
round of friendship therapy and we'll
Air out
see
our
how
dirty
that goes.
laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But where can we find you, Hillary, if we need this wonderful
Yes.
therapy?
Yes. So I'm a resident, which means I'm licensed only in Virginia, and I'm working my way towards full licensure. I'm just a few hours away from that, but I'm only licensed to practice in the state of Virginia. So if any of our listeners out there are wanting online therapy and they're in Virginia, you can definitely reach out, and I'll give the website in just a moment. And then the practice is physically based in Virginia Beach. So if anyone's local to the Virginia Beach area and wants to get couples or individual therapy, this would be an option for you too. So you can go to our website. It's Emily Brown Levis, Levis.com.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Hillary. And I hope all of you guys watching or listening really take this into consideration. If you've been struggling with maybe your friendships, even, or your marriage, or just individual things going on inside of you, let this be your sign. Call a therapist, get in touch with a therapist, whether it's online, like Hillary said, or an in person. Let this be your sign to just do it. I truly believe it's for everybody. You are not a failure. You are not broken. We just need an outlet. We need that outlet, that unbiased, neutral outlet to tell us, let's figure things out. Let's figure out what's going on inside. And so I hope this is helpful to everyone listening. And thank you guys again for watching. Thank you for subscribing and following all the things that you guys do for our little podcast here.
I know,
So
our little slice of
thank you,
heaven.
our little slice of heaven. Thank you guys for watching, and join us next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Hillary.
Hillary,
You
you
are
were
the
awesome.
bomb.com.
Oh, thanks, guys. That was so fun.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Soul Sisters podcast.
Our heart is to bring this encouraging content to you, and we ask that you join us by following or subscribing wherever you're listening from.
And also, share this with a friend who would enjoy it.
We love you, and we'll see you again next week for a new episode. Besitos!